Hare Krishna, dear devotees, Danvat Pranam. Please accept my humble obeisances. All glories to Srila Prabhupada. We are reading Bhagavad Gita, chapter 12. We'll start with Mangla Charan. These are the auspicious prayers invocating the mercy of Guru Parampara. So let's all chant. ॐ अज्ञानतिमिरन्धस्य ज्ञानञ्जनशलाकया
तस्मै श्री गुरवे नमः। चैतन्ये मनोभीष्टं स्थापितं येन भूतले स्वयं रूपः मायं प्रति स्वयपदान्तिकम्
वन्देऽहं
श्रीगुरो वैष्णवं च रूपं सद्यातं सहगना रघुनाथान्वितं सहितं कृष्णचैतन्यदेवं श्रीराधाकृष्णपदं सहगना ललिता श्रीकृष्ण करुणा सिन्धु दीनबन्धो जगत्पते गोपेश गोपिका माता राधा नमोस्तुते। काञ्चना गौराङ्गी राधे वृन्दावनेश्वरी वैष्णवी देवी प्रणमामि हरिप्रिये। कृपा सिन्धु पतितानां पावनाभयो वैष्णवभयो नमो नमः।
जय श्री कृष्ण चैतन्य
कृष्ण
प्रभु
चैतन्य प्रभु
नित्यानंद श्री अद्वैत
नित्यानन्द
गदाधर
श्री अद्वैता
श्रीवासादि गौर
गदाधरे श्री
भक्तवृंद
वैष्णवादि गौर
हरे कृष्णा
भक्त
हरे कृष्णा
कृष्ण हरे
कृष्णा कृष्णा
कृष्ण
हरे हरे
कृष्ण
हरे
कृष्ण
हरे
हरे
राम
हरे
राम राम हरे हरे
राम राम हरे हरे।
नमो विष्णुपादाय
कृष्ण
कृष्णप्रेष्ठाय
प्रेष्ठाय
भूतले
भूतले
श्रीमते
श्रीमते वेदांत स्वामी नामने
नमस्ते
सरस्वती
सरस्वती
गौरवाणी
देवे
गौरवाणी
गौरवाणी
प्रचारणे निर्विशेष शून्यवादी पाश्चात्य देशतारणे
मूकं करोति वाचालं पङ्गुं लङ्घयते गिरिं यत्कृपातं वन्दे
कृपातम् अहं
श्रीगुरुदीनतारिणं
वन्दे श्रीगुरुं दीनतारिणं
परमानन्दमाधवं कृष्ण
परमानन्दं कृष्ण
चैतन्येश्वरम्
चैतन्य ईश्वरम्
गुरुगौरचन्द्राय राधिकाय तदालये
राधिकायै
कृष्णाय
तदालये
कृष्णभक्ताय
कृष्णाय
तद्भक्ताय
कृष्णभक्ताय
नमो नमः
तद्भक्ताय नमो नमः।
Hare Krishna. Okay, we'll resume our chapter 12. So, I know many devotees were missing last time, and we missed one class in the middle too. So, did anyone get a chance to listen to the last couple sessions we had, 12.1 to 4 and then 5? Because we covered just one shloka last time, 12.5, which is very, very important. Um, yes? Okay, Sheetal Mataji is saying yes. Anybody else got a chance to hear? Anybody who was not here? 12.5 is the one that we covered last time. And if any questions, doubts, because it was very difficult concept, and we were basically talking about different types of impersonalism and how that is different from bhakti, and also among different types of impersonalism, what is the understanding between, we talked about Shunyavad, Brahmavad, there are so many others like that, but we covered just the common ones. And then what is Mayavad actually? I asked this question last time, why is Mayavad considered an offense? In Shunyavad, Brahmavad, they're not considered offensive. Mayavad, on the other hand, is considered worse than atheism and is considered almost an offense. And we were talking about that. So, in a few lines, would anyone like to share their understanding why that is an offensive path to take, offensive understanding? What is the aparad in it? Who would like to share? Mataji, Sheetal Mataji, you heard the session. Would you like to share?
Hare Krishna, Dandavat Pranam to all the devotees. Mataji, from what I understood, the Mayavadi philosophy entails that that this world is under the illusion, including the Supreme. personality of Godhead too, and that is why it is considered like an offense. And it is believed that all of us can become Krishna, I guess, and they don't have the what do you say, the personalized form of Krishna. They don't pray to that.
Yes, Mataji, yes. So that all the pastimes, the forms, the avatars that happen, they
Yes,
are just Maya. They're under the influence of
Maya.
Maya. And if we make our own effort, we can also come as Krishna one of the times. So one can also become God. Anybody can become God. We are all gods, and all these avatars or pastimes that happen, they are just basically also an illusion, also under the control of Maya. So Maya Vad means that Maya is more superior than the Supreme Person. And so that's very directly conflicting with Bhagavad Gita, where Krishna is saying that this Maya is under my control. It is one of my inferior energies, actually. And and whereas they are believing that Maya is something more superior, and the goal is to become God oneself. And if we can get out of the control of Maya, then we can become God too. So that is how it is offensive. The other philosophies of impersonalism is just partial understanding or incomplete understanding, right? Whether it's Shunyavad or Brahmavad, they're thinking that if we can just stop this material existence, we'll be free from all miseries, right? Cessation of material existence is basically that we'll get freedom from miseries. So they're not talking about Anand, but the miseries will stop, and the goal is to merge into Brahman. That is another kind of understanding. So they are incomplete or partial understanding, but they're not really offensive. Um, is that okay with everybody? Is that clear? Yeah. Anybody else would like to share? Because that will finish our the question that Arjun asked. Arjun asked which path is better to take. He's not asking about Mayavad at all. He's talking about which path is better to take between merging with Brahman, impersonalism, versus bhakti. Right? He asked a very clear question. And in the fifth verse, and Krishna described both their position. He said both are very dear to me. Both are very exalted people. They have sense control, they have mind control, they practice austerities, they are shant, sober people, right? Sthit pragyas. So both are very dear. But between the two, he said in 12.5, he clearly stated that one path is easier and reaches the supreme goal, whereas on the other path there are more dukkhas, there are more kleshas, and that path is harder to take and more likely to fall down. He said that in his own statement in 12.5, right? So does anyone know that verse here, 12.5? It is if you are aiming for the next level, those who have done 50, then in 108 or 100, that verse should be included from 12th chapter. 12th chapter, actually, people memorize the whole chapter because it's only 20 verses and it's a devotional service. So actually, some kids have memorized the whole chapter. But that one verse, 12.5, is actually very, very important. Does Navya know by chance? I can't remember. So Krishna says, Kleshodhiktarastesham avyakta asakta chetasam. That klesha will happen to those people who are attached to the avyakt or imperson. Vyakti means person, avyakt means impersonal, unmanifested. So those who are attached to the impersonal, kleshodhiktarastesham, they'll have kleshas or difficulties in this path. क्लेशोऽधिकतरस्तेषाम् अव्यक्त असक्त चेतसाम् अव्यक्त हि गतिर्दुःखम् देहवादभिरवप्यते. That it will be dukkha. It will be a problematic path to follow. It will be a very sorrowful path to follow for the embodied souls. Dehavadabi means we are embodied souls. We are jivas that had to take a body. So we have accepted these this gross and subtle body, which consists of senses, mind, and intelligence. So for this embodied soul, this path is very sorrowful. Why? Because we have taken this body, so we need to use this body in the service. If we don't use this body, this gross and subtle body in the service, then it's very hard, very difficult to follow on a path. So just uh, keeping the senses, the mind, the intelligence aside is very difficult when we have accepted this body consisting of senses, mind, intelligence, and everything. So it's better to utilize those things, that body that has been given to you in service of Krishna, and make this process joyful. Su sukham kartum avyayam, right? So make this process joyful, not gatir dukkham, not dukkha full. So that is why bhakti is considered superior to the impersonal path. So that question, that loop was ended here in this particular shloka, and from here we'll move forward. If anybody has any questions, please ask. If not, we'll move forward from 12.6. Or anybody wants to share anything.
So Mataji, even the impersonalist will have some form of bhakti, right? Like they have the mixture of bhakti sometimes. How should we understand that?
Sure. So yes, Mataji, typically bhakti means love, right? Or devotion, right? Devotion to something. You have a devotion to something, right? So you're devoted to your kids, you're devoted to your husband, people are devoted to their pets, or you're devoted to your job, or you're devoted to your community. Some people are devoted to their country, so they're called Desh Bhakta or Pativratas, or right. So somebody has a bhakti towards something, right? We say Desh Bhakta, devoted to their country, to the cause, to some cause, something. So yes, you can be devoted to anything, right? You can have a particular cause in mind and be devoted to that cause. Like, okay, I want to merge into Brahman. I want to get liberation. I want to stop this material existence and never take this body again. I'm devoted to that cause, and I will follow a path of austerity, follow path of sense control, mind control, sit in dhyan, ashtanga yoga. So that is okay, fine. But typically, devotion or love happens between people, two persons. So you have to have a person to give service to. And it is our nature, the nature of the jiva to give service to somebody. If we don't service Krishna, if we don't give service to Krishna, then we will find something to give service to. We will find masters to give service to. We'll artificially make masters, like at our job, right? We serve somebody, or our kids, we'll serve them. Or people don't have anybody, then they'll have cats or dogs to serve. Some people are just serving their cars. So, so you'll find something or the other to give service to. But but in proper terms, bhakti or devotion refers to the supreme person, because that is where our propensity of service comes from, because we are servants of Krishna. So because of being servant, we have this propensity of service that has never gone away. Even after all these births and deaths, we have this. So even if you become a lord, he's still serving somebody. If nothing, people are serving their own senses. If nothing, people are serving their own anger, right? There is this famous pastime of um, Alexander the Great, right? Sikandar. So when he was in India, he came to India to conquer, right? He was very angry and everything. He saw this sadhu sitting there in meditation who did not get up to bow down to him. And he got very upset at this sadhu. Oh, you did not even get up. You don't know that I'm Alexander the Great. You did not get up. I've conquered the whole world. I'm Lord of the world, huh? And you did not get up to bow down to me. So he said, I don't think you are Lord of anything. You're Lord of the whole world. You are actually a huge servant to your own anger. You're servant to your own anger, that you're not even able to control that. How can you say you control the whole world? A master means somebody who's able to control everything, right? But you're not even able to control your own anger. So you are a servant of your own body. Forget about being a master of anything. So in this way, we are serving something or the other. But the true service, the true bhakti, true devotion is when we serve Krishna, when we have love or devotion to the Supreme Person. Now, I know the context in which you are asking, people have the original, let's say Jainism, Buddhism, right? The concept was nirvana, right? Salvation, cessation of material existence. But slowly, as things evolve, they have become, all the practices have evolved, and so they have become more complex so that people take some aspects of different philosophies from here and there. So yes, there's some people have come up with these modern, for example, I don't want to say any names, but there are saints and sadhus who are sitting in dhyan, not focusing on anything but just Brahman, let's say, or just darkness, nothingness, but also praying to Shiva, also devoted to Shiva. So, on one hand, you're saying that there is nothingness, then on the other hand, you're praying to Shiva, or you're praying to still Kali or somebody. So, in one way or the other, people have accepted part of the Hinduism, part of the impersonal theories have come up with these um, modern complicated philosophies which are not in junction with any scriptures. So yes, but the path is pure bhakti, pure love or devotion is, what is the target? What is the goal here? That is what Krishna is teaching us, right? So if we just stick to the teachings of Krishna and not come up with our own philosophies or modern concepts, then Krishna is recommending just pure bhakti, just Krishna prema, right? And if you go after completing the basic science of Bhagavad Gita, if you want to learn more advanced knowledge, then we start reading Srimad Bhagavatam, which is the Amal Puran that gives you the knowledge of Krishna, about how to get Krishna prema, right? So the highest goal is Krishna prema. We don't want to follow any mixed paths or purely impersonal paths or mixed paths or any kind of contaminated theories. We just want to follow pure devotees if possible. So that's how I understand Mataji. Would anyone else like to share? And then we also did you get a chance to look at that this document we had made? So this was one of the classification, let's say very broad classification, that there are karmis, people that are just following sense gratification, right? And then there are impersonalists that are trying to merge into Brahman or focusing on Paramatma, right? And then there are bhaktas or personalists that are devotees, and what kind of bliss they enjoy, right? So there are three aspects of our spirit soul. So we know that our body is made of gross body and subtle body. And what is our spirit soul made of? What is the constitution of the spirit soul?
Satchitanand.
Satchitanand, right? So one of the injunctions of Vedanta Sutras says that it is our position to be always blissful. It's called Anandamayo Bhyasat. Has anybody heard of that before? Prabhupada keeps quoting it many times. Anandamayo Bhyasat, right? So that is our position to be always blissful. So what happens is sense gratification is completely opposite of eternal knowledge and bliss. It's temporary, it gives miseries in the end, and it takes us towards ignorance, right? So this is sense gratification or karmis are following completely opposite path of the Satchidanand, right? Now, the people that are in impersonalism or meditating on Brahman or Paramatma, now they are on the path of eternity, knowledge, and they're getting bliss also, but not uh, as much bliss as a devotee gets. And we talked about the kind of bliss they enjoy. Sense gratification gives you some bliss, right? But very temporary and ultimately ends up in miseries and it takes you towards ignorance. But whatever temporary bliss one gets is called Bhoganand. It is very small bliss. It is compared to like one drop of an ocean. People focusing on Brahman or Paramatma, right? They enjoy much greater bliss and they are going towards knowledge, they are going towards eternity, and their bliss is much more than karmis. It's compared to like a handful or a bucket and called Brahmananda or Paramananda, right? And then devotees, which are bhaktas, that are focusing on Bhagwan and reading or engaging in discussion or hearing about the glories of Krishna, his pastimes, his names, forms, qualities, they get something called Bhaktyananda, and that is compared to an ocean of bliss, which is never ending, right? Hari Anand, Hari Kathanand, right? So those that are taking delight in Hari's pastimes, name, form, qualities, then their bliss is compared to an ocean of bliss. So why should we aim less and aim for a handful or a bucket when we could get an ocean of bliss? And when Krishna himself says that the other path is harder to follow and more likely to fall down, we don't want to experiment with the rare human life, but we don't get this life again and have a fall down and don't come back to human species for a long, long time. So then we wasted this life. So we just want to aim for the best possible. Right? Yes, Vaidehi or Ravi Prabhu?
Mataji, I know you are quoting this from some reference, or maybe you have read a lot. So this one that you're saying, the Brahmananda and Bhaktananda, so is it somewhere in the Bhagavatam that say that person who is on the Brahman and Paramatma, their bliss is less than the Bhakti?
Yes, Prabhuji.
Or, okay.
Yes.
So, I mean, I want to read more on that, so we'll talk on that.
Say that again, Prabhuji.
I want to little bit read more on that. So we'll see, like, like Brahmanand, because I just came to my mind. I used to sing one Brahmananda Swarupa Isha Jagadisha Akilananda Swarupa Isha Mahesha. So I thought if their bliss is little limited, then I need to little bit know more on that.
Yes, Prabhuji, definitely. No doubt at all. Their bliss is very, 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 very limited. No doubt, because there is no service anywhere involved. So meditating on now Brahman is a term that is used for various spiritual activities or spiritual platform in general. So so yes, there is Brahmananda, right? But it is nowhere compared to what the devotees enjoy. There is no mercy on that path. If you're focusing on Brahman, if you're just sitting meditating, you're relying on your own efforts to get liberation. There is no mercy. There is no seva to Vaishnava. Let's say you go today and sit in a corner and meditating on Brahman. Yes, you will get Brahmanand or you will realize Paramatma. But you're not, if you serve Vaishnavas, if you serve deities in the temple, if you are serving your Guru, you're getting their mercy. So you're not relying on your own efforts to get liberation. Their mercy is gonna get you liberation or getting you to Krishna. Not forget liberation. Forget liberation. Jeev Goswami said that, actually not Jeev, Rupa Goswami said that mukti, the desire for mukti is like pishachini, he said. It's like a witch. So that takes you away from bhakti. Because it is very selfish desire. Just I want just for myself liberation. But when there is service, you're taking everybody and you're serving them and you're relying on their mercy to get you not only liberation but Param Dham. And Krishna keeps saying, come to my supreme abode. He keeps saying, come to me, come back to me, come back to Godhead. He keeps saying the entire Bhagavad Gita, every few shlokas. So there is no, so if we are relying on our own efforts, we can fall down. So I was giving this example, I heard this example recently. Imagine if you have a lawsuit on you, which we doctors are very, very infamously familiar with. Let's say there is a lawsuit on you, right? You can read your law books and decide to fight the lawsuit yourself. You can go to the judge, in front of the judge, and you are aware of all the circumstances that happened. This is what I did. This is what this person did. This is how you should do the ruling in favor of me. You can put your case in front of the judge yourself, right? But you are very, very likely to fail. Now you put yourself in hands of a lawyer who has studied everything, who has studied the law books in and out, and that lawyer will now fight your case for you. You tell him your situation, that this is what happened, this is what I did, this is what that person did, and you fight my case for me. Now that lawyer in front of the judge with proper etiquettes and everything will fight your case for you, and you're very likely to succeed. So you are taking shelter of that lawyer to get the judge to be convinced, to fight your case so that you win. So in this way, you have surrendered to that lawyer completely, that I will do whatever you say and I am under your guidance. In this way, we put ourselves in the mercy of the gurus, Vaishnavas, and the other sadhus, right? Or even scriptures, Guru, Sadhu, Shastra. And we rely on their guidance to take us back to Godhead. We don't rely on our own efforts. In Brahmanand or Paramanand, people are sitting and relying on their own efforts. We are saying we are nothing. We are, by ourselves, we are very, very likely to fall down. And we don't have time to waste in this human life to experiment and fall down. And plus, even then, let's say somebody is able to do it perfectly and does not fall down. Even then, they will only get liberation, only get mukti, not back to Godhead. So you did not even get the best thing that was possible, and you went on a difficult path. So that is not, an intelligent person will understand that we should follow an easier path to get to the best thing, not follow a difficult path to get to the lower thing. So that is, yes, Prabhuji.
No, Vaidehi Mata has a question.
So you just said that they'll get liberation, but they won't go back to Godhead. Isn't getting liberation going back to Godhead, or like vice versa?
Yes, very nice question. So very, very intelligent. Okay, let's, we've talked about this in the past. Now this is also given in Srimad Bhagavatam. Okay, so I think the next thing to study is Srimad Bhagavatam, and we have to study, not just read. But there are 5 types of liberation or muktis given. I think that is very difficult for this class to understand. But the highest among those 5 types, so there are various types. There is something called Salokya, Swarupya, Sayujya, Samipya, and which one did I not mention? One I forgot. So anyway, there are 5 like that. So one is where you, Sayujya Mukti is where you just achieve liberation, where you just merge into Brahman, that is Moksha. But Salokya, Samipya, Swarupya, these are the higher types where one either lives on the same planet as Krishna, or one gets the same body as Krishna, like the Vishnu Dutas. Vishnu Dutas have the same opulences, same like 400 form as Vishnu, not Krishna, but same opulences as Vishnu. So that is called Swarupya. One is Samipya. Samipya means that one will stay close as a close associate of Krishna, so they'll get to participate in various pastimes of Krishna. So in this way, there are 5 types, but the moksha or just merging into Brahman is just one of the types. But the highest aim is to go back to Godhead and actually be employed in the service of Krishna. But I think it is a little difficult to understand right now. Anybody else would like to share on this? Whoever, Nirbhay Prabhu, has any insights on this?
Thank you, Mataji, for explaining.
Yeah, thank you.
I'll share some verses with you which mention these. Sarshti, yes, Sarshti we forgot. I forgot. Yes, Nirbhay Prabhu, thank you. Sarshti is achieving opulence is equal to that of the Lord. Sarupya is having a form like that of the Lord. Samipya is as a personal associate. Salokya is living on the Vaikuntha's planet. Sayujya is merging into the Brahman feature of the Lord. Okay. If everybody is okay, shall we start? So now, yes.
I was thinking of a couple of things that when we were having these discussions. So first thing that is coming to my mind is the Guru Sadhu Shastra, that we are depending upon Guru, Sadhu and Shastra, and it is and, it is not or. So we're not only talking about Guru, not only Sadhu, and not only Shastra. Everything comes together, which means the Guru should be speaking from, should be serving devotees, should be speaking from the Shastras. Sadhu is not just any sadhu, it is sadhu who is in the disciplic succession, Guru, and who's following Shastras. And Shastras is the bona fide Shastras, not just any book that we are reading. So those Guru, Sadhu, it is not Guru, Sadhu or Shastra. or guru or sadhu or shastra. It's guru, sadhu, and shastra. So it is all, it should, all three conditions should be met. That the guru should be speaking from the shastras. The sadhu should be, having those other qualities. The shastra should be bona fide shastra. And the second thing that was coming to my mind when we were discussing this is we have limited time. So have you seen any kids have seen those challenges or whatever, that you go in a little box and there is wind and you have to pick up as much money as you can get or whatever, right? Okay. So our life is like that. We have limited time. They give you 1 minute. You can go in that box, that is this material world, and you can take whatever time you have in that. You have to pick up the best things that we can. Now there are one rupee notes or $1 note, $100 note, $20 note in that. So the intelligent person will collect all the $100 notes, right? Not go for the $1 notes, because he knows he has limited time. So that is our situation. We have limited time in this material world. We should go for the highest goal. So try to figure out what is the highest goal. In that example, we know the highest goal is, the $100 versus the $1. So try to collect as many $100 as possible in the limited time. So that is what we are trying to do. Once Krishna has said here that, Arjuna has very nicely asked it for us, which is better, this or this? I have limited time. I have to collect something or the other. I can collect the $1 or the $100. What should I collect? So Krishna is saying, take the $100 note. That will be more beneficial. Okay, so I'm not going to waste my time trying to collect the $1 notes now. I'm going to just go for that $100 note. So that's bhakti. Bhakti is that $100 note. Krishna has said that the other one, you have to collect $1,100 notes to get to $1,000. And you may be able to do it, but in that 1 minute, it may be difficult to get to that $1,000 like that. Okay, it's not, you will get it eventually. If you keep collecting or you are too good, you may get it. But same, if you just collect 10 of those $100 notes, you'll be better off. Okay, so that's the second thing that was coming to my mind. And then third thing was coming to my mind was yesterday, I loved the example Shubh Vilas Prabhu gave in his class about, he was talking about the map, that, somebody is trying to find Delhi in the map of America. Okay, now he is trying his best, giving his best. He is putting all his energy in it. No, where is Delhi? I have looked into this. I looked into Tennessee. I looked into New York. I can't find Delhi. Oh, so he's giving all his effort. He's doing it with all his, power, but he's not going to find Delhi, because it's not there. So it is not really that we should say, oh no, look at him. See, he's so optimistic. He's trying to find, he's giving his best shot. He's so dedicated that he's looking for Delhi, but he's looking in the wrong map. He's looking in the wrong place. So that's not we should not be praising that person. We should be telling that person, hey, look, you're foolish, man. Look in the India's map, you will find it, right? So you look in the right place. And that is a smart person, that who's looking in the right place and will find Delhi easily. So it's not that the person who's telling this person who's looking in America map, he has anything against them, that he's saying that, no, you're looking in the wrong place. No, he's actually saying for his own good that, hey, we are just helping you, this is the right place to find it. Okay. So if you keep looking in that America map, you may be very dedicated, you may be very optimistic, you may be giving it your best shot, but you're still avyaktahi gatir dukam devo vadavirvapyate, right? So Hare Krishna.
Okay,
Prabhuji,
yes.
What are those last
Yes,
two
Prabhu.
lines?
Prabhuji, no cryptocurrency in the box.
No crypto. Very good.
Okay,
Nirmal
let's-
Prabhuji, you explained it so well. That was some really good examples.
Yes, thank you. That $100 note, that's the best example. Yes, so we have to get to
That's
the
it.
best thing. Prabhupada
That's
said
it.
that in this lifetime only one can go back to Godhead. So we don't have too many lifetimes to waste to do things. Okay, let's start with the reading. Let's do 12.6 and 7. Okay. So we'll read and recite. Ye tu sarvani karmani
ये तु सर्वाणि कर्माणि
मयि सन्न्यस्य मत्परा
मयि
अन्यनैव योगेन
अनन्यैव योगेन
मां ध्यायन्त उपासते
मां ध्यायन्त
तेषाम् अहं समुद्धर्ता
तेषामहं समुद्धार्ता
मृत्यु संसारसागरात्
मृत्यु संसारसागरात्
भवामि न चिरात् पार्थ
भवामि नाचिरात् पार्थ
मयि आवेशितचेतसाम्
मया
Okay, can someone read this?
I can read, Mataji.
Mhm.
But those who worship me, giving up all their actions unto me, and
activities unto me.
giving up all their activities unto me, and being devoted to me without deviation, engaged in devotional service, and always meditating upon me, having fixed their minds upon me, O son of Pritha, for them I am the swift deliverer from the ocean of birth and death.
Hari Bol.
Very bold. Okay. So this verse, so there are two verses here. So the first verse, sixth verse, he's saying what you should do. So he's saying that give up all your first thing he's saying, give up all your activities unto me, right? So we do all the activities for Krishna and give all the results of our activities to Krishna, right? We don't think that we are the doer and we try to do everything for in service of Krishna. And the way you can offer your activities unto Krishna, we have discussed about that many times, various ways one can offer our activities, the results of our activities unto Krishna. Right? Yad karoshi, yadashnasi, whatever you do, whatever you eat. Basically, you change your consciousness, your intention about why or how you're doing some activities. And you try to do everything for Krishna. Secondly, he says, devoted to me without deviation, right? Ananyeva yogena, that without any other deviation, without any exclusive devotion to me, right? Like he said, ananyas chintayanto mam. So before also he said with one pointed intelligence, just focus on me. And those who mam dhyayanta upasate, those who worship me with full meditation on me, always thinking of me, those who worship me, right? So do those things. Give up all your activities to me, worship me without deviation, exclusive deviation, and fix your mind on me. And then I will. And then in the seventh shloka, he says what I will do. In sixth, he says what you should do. And then when you do all those things, he promises that I will take you out of this cycle of birth and death. Mrityu samsara sagarat. That out of this sagar of mrityu and cycle of birth and death, I'll take you out. And very swiftly I'll deliver you. So that promise of Prabhupada that you will go back to Godhead in this lifetime only, it is possible. Actually, there is a video of Prabhupada where he says, how can one get bhakti in 10 seconds? So if one wanted to perfect their life, it can be done very swiftly. It is possible with the mercy of Krishna, right? So chirat, meaning that I can do this very swiftly. I can deliver you without any wasting any time. So, so that is the situation of the devotees that we are trying to follow, right? They are always offering their activities to Krishna. You've seen all the various Vaishnavas in your life. I'm sure you're in touch with them. How they chant with focus and attention, how they do deity worship, how they do all the services for Krishna. And the main thing about the various devotees is that in different circumstances or different situations of life, no matter what the time, place, or circumstances is, the main goal, the rule that everybody should remember is, who will tell me what is the principal goal? And I'll give you an acronym to remember if you don't remember.
Principal goal of what?
What is the no matter what happens, whether you can follow any rule or regulation or not, but this one rule one should never forget. What is that
Oh,
rule?
Never forget Krishna, always remember Krishna.
Yes,
That's right.
right? So let's fix this in our memory. ARK, always remember Krishna, never forget Krishna, right? So that is the situation of the pure devotees, that they always remember Krishna, never forget Krishna, right? So let's, and whether it's Sukh, Dukh, Fame, infamy, right? These things are bound to come. All these dualities are bound to come. Health, sickness, whether you're living in house or forest, right? Grihe thako, vane thako, wherever you live, they always remember Krishna. That is the rule number one, and every other rule is secondary to this main rule, okay? So their life mission is to please Krishna. That is what Krishna is saying. By worshipping me, by fixing your mind upon me, by giving all your activities, basically, you are always remembering Krishna. You're always trying to please Krishna, right? And the best example is Prabhupada himself. If you cannot think of anybody, any Vaishnava in your life or anybody, just think of Prabhupada. Whether he was, people will criticize him sometimes. Oh, you are, your teacher, he travels in limousines. But whether he's traveling in limousine or bullock cart in Vrindavan, he was always the same. It does not matter to him. We are fallen souls, so we look at him through a material perspective that, oh, he's traveling by air, or he's traveling in a limousine, or he's traveling in a bullock cart. He does not care. He is Sama Sarvesh. He's always same in all situations. He is always just focused on Krishna. So that is called the Samadhi. So samadhi is not, there are various types of samadhis, right? Samadhi is not just by sitting and focusing blankly on nothing. Samadhi is also doing your activities and speaking of Krishna and remembering him all the time. That is the best samadhi, actually. So Prabhupada was in that mood always in samadhi. So samadhi is not just sitting idly and not doing anything and focusing on, that is also a samadhi. Yes, that is part of Ashtanga Yoga, definitely. But this is also samadhi. This is where all your senses, all your body, mind, intelligence, ego are employed in the service of Krishna. So no matter whether he was in San Francisco or Vrindavan, whether he was in limousine or bullock cart, whether he was sitting doing kirtan in Central Park or in the temple in Radha Krishna temple in Vrindavan, no, it doesn't matter. He was always in full consciousness of Krishna. He was always remembering Krishna. So that is why, coming to America, so many people came to America, but nobody could create so much influence, so much, could start a whole movement like this, because Prabhupada is transcendental to all these material things that we care about, right? We care about whether we are traveling in car or by foot. We boast about things like this. To Prabhupada, those things don't matter. So devotees are just transcendental to these dualities, and they experience spiritual bliss. Like we were talking about bliss yesterday. Mataji was asking, what is the spiritual bliss? How is that different from like material happiness? I think Sheetal Mataji was asking something on those lines. The bliss that one experiences in spiritual world, is that different from happiness or so? No, their bliss is their Brahma Bhuta Prasannatma, right? That shloka, very famous shloka from 18th chapter, it will come. Brahma Bhuta Prasannatma na shochati na kankshati sama sarveshu bhuteshu mad bhaktim lapte param. Not something else. Mad bhaktim, my bhakti, that person gets. Who? The one who's transcendental, the one who is always equal to others and not deviated even in the dualities. So no matter what the dualities of life, no matter what the time, place, and circumstances is, if we are always trying to please Krishna, always remembering Krishna, never forgetting Krishna, then we can always enjoy the spiritual bliss. And that bliss is the Bhakti-ananda. That is not Brahmananda or Paramananda. That is not similar to the happiness of material world. So, so then one may ask, how does, um, like I don't know if Mataji, Sheetal Mataji, when I was sharing on this yesterday, did you catch my joke about it? But what I was trying to say is that we talk about spiritual bliss, right? Like Prabhuji was also asking just now, is Brahmanand less than Bhakti-anand, right? He was asking, right? So how can we know? How do we know? Everybody, if it is very subjective, then that person can only speak for himself, right? How can we know? You cannot know these things. You cannot understand by explaining these things. You have to just realize these things. That's what I was trying to say. We have to get to that level where we can realize, where we start having realizations of our own. When we start having realizations of our own, then actually the path will become easier. So in the beginning, we have to follow these rules, these regulations, this discipline. Very, it seems very dry. But when we start having realizations, when we start uh, making efforts, Krishna will start reciprocating with us. He will start revealing things to us. And when he starts revealing things to us, we start having realizations. And actually, all these people that say, I've been in bhakti for 20 years or 30 years, or somebody has been a Prabhupada disciple, right? So 40 plus years. The reason these people have been able to stay so long is because they've been having realizations of their own. These people have been making efforts. They're always trying to please Krishna. So Krishna has been reciprocating with them, right? When Krishna he starts revealing more and more to you. As he starts revealing more and more to you, you start having your realization, then you'll be able to stay on this path even more, right? Because you are getting the taste. Once you start getting the taste, the chanting becomes easier. You want to associate more with devotees. You want to do DT worship. You want to participate in the Sankirtan. All those limbs of bhakti, they become easier because we've been having these realizations. But Krishna does not reveal until we make an effort. That is why in this two verses, 6 and 7, sixth verse is about our effort and seventh verse is about Krishna's reciprocation. So first you put the effort, then Krishna will reciprocate, right? In vending machine, you put the coin in, then the vending machine gives the Coca-Cola, right? So the Coca-Cola Bhakti will come when we put the coin in. So putting the coin means you start chanting. You start remembering Krishna more and more. You start thinking of Krishna in various activities and start offering your fruits of various activities to Krishna. You make an effort and then Krishna will start revealing more and more. Let me see, somebody's saying something in the chat. Nirbhay Prabhu is saying Noah's Ark, A-R-K, always remember Krishna. Right. So ARK is always remember Krishna, ARK, and NFK, never forget Krishna. That is the supreme rule. So, so yes.
Hare Krishna. Sorry. I don't know, the voice is coming weird. But I was saying that, how Shukvilas Prabhu did that little exercise with, I think, devotees when they were discussing one of the shlokas about the same thing, that, try to think about nothing and things like that, and versus trying to think about Krishna. So just like that, it's easy to, experience that and see that. That's why he did that. Hare Krishna.
Yes, thank you.
Yeah, always there has to be one anchor. Anchor is needed for any kind of meditation. So that anchor, if not there, if nothing is there as an anchor, then it's very hard. But if there is any anchor, that is easy.
Yes, Prabhuji, yes. So yes, so chanting, like you said, is the first step, right? Prabhupada said that the 90% of your progress happens with chanting. So progress meaning that person starts having realizations. Without realizations, it's very difficult. So the people that are not able to give up are basically, if you're not chanting hard enough, you're committing offenses, you're basically committing Vaishnava Prad or not very half-heartedly engaging in things, right? So then realizations won't happen, reciprocation won't happen, and very difficult to continue on this path. So then people fall down. Sometimes people will ask, that person used to follow this and was in Krishna consciousness. He stopped doing it, or because we can't say on what happened with anybody, but either the chanting was not very strong, or they were very most likely it's the offenses. It's even more than weak chanting, it's the offenses, it's the Vaishnava Prad that one commits that stops one from pursuing this path of bhakti or progressing in this path. Because mercy of Vaishnavas on this path is very, very important, right? That's what we talked about. That's the oil to grease our wheels. So even, you know, like even chanting is so um, amazing. Like Prabhupada recommended that chanting should be done, you know, so many times. He gave a number. But even somebody like Shankaracharya, who was an impersonalist, who was a propounder of impersonalism, right? So Sripad Adi Shankaracharya himself wrote this huge long song about Bhaj Govindam. What does Bhaj Govindam mean? Chant the names of Govinda. So Bhaj Govindam, he said, Bhaj Govindam, Govindam Bhaj Moodmate, right? And then he said, Naam Smarnad Anya Upaya Nahi Pashyamo Bhavatarane. That Naam Smarnad Anya Upaya, that there is no other upaya other than remembering the names of Krishna to cross this material existence. And Krishna says in this verse that if you do my worship, if you do my upasana, I will take you across the ocean of birth and death, right? So imagine if you're drowning in a big ocean, and then you're calling for help. You have to call. So that is what our chant is. Chanting is calling for help so that the helicopter will come and drop that rope so that we can climb up that rope. So Krishna is saying, you call for help and I will send that helicopter and drop the ladder so you can climb up it, right? So it's like a man who's drowning in the middle of this ocean. He, by his own effort, what can he do? By his own effort, he will eventually get tired trying to cross that ocean, right? If you're in the middle of an ocean, even if you're an expert swimmer, you can try, you can keep doing all your best strokes possible, but ultimately you will get tired and drown, right? But on the other hand, if you just called for help, right? If you just wave a flag or call for help, then the helicopter will come and throw a rope. And in this way, similarly, Lord says that I will throw that rope and pick up the devotee from the Bhavsagar, right? But we have to make that noise. It is on us to make that noise. Otherwise, he doesn't know that we need help. He thinks that we are enjoying in this Bhavsagar, we are enjoying sense gratification. And we wanted to come here, we wanted to enjoy without him. So we are enjoying. But unless we call for help, he doesn't know that we want him to pick us up. So we have to get his attention. So when we chant with that prayerful mood that I'm calling for help. It is a cry. It is a cry for help that take me away, right? So in this way, our mood should be while chanting. And in this way, if we chant strongly, we'll start having realizations. And when people ask you, have you seen God? Like some people are very interested in this, have you seen God? So, or Prabhupada especially, you know, like if you're very elevated, we are struggling practitioners, so that's different. But if you're a very elevated soul, people will say, oh, have you seen God? So everybody is very interested in seeing God. But devotees are not concerned about seeing God. They want to be seen by God. They want God to see them. So they're not very interested in a proof of God. They already know that there is God. They want God to spot them. So we want the helicopter to spot us, right? We are not very interested in seeing God. We want God to see us so that he can come and reciprocate with us or take us back. And so that is, with Prabhupada also, people used to ask, have you seen God, Swamiji? Have you seen God? So he would say that I can show you, yes, I can show you God, but you have to put in the effort. And this is the effort. You make the effort and then people start having their realizations. Even with the Moglila Prabhu, somebody asked, have you had any realizations? He said that, you know, that is a very personal question. Yes, I have had realizations because I've been in bhakti for 20 years. You cannot be in bhakti for 20 years unless you've had realizations. So keep putting an effort and you will get those realizations from Krishna, right? Krishna's mercy will follow. Okay, if anybody has anything to share, then please do. If not, we'll go to the next one. So the import of this verse is that Krishna says, you put your effort in and I will take you across, right? You call for help and I will help you. Okay, let's do so these next 4 shlokas, 8, 9, 10, 11, very, very, very important, okay? 4 shlokas, Krishna gives, I know that Ravi Prabhu is familiar with the sequence in these 4 shlokas. I know that you quoted that very, very long time back, Prabhuji. You remember that? The sequence in which these 4 shlokas go, how Krishna says, if you can do this, then that is best. If you can't do this, then at least do this. If not even that, then at least do this, right? You remember that, Prabhuji?
Yes, Mataji, he's giving you discount. It's on the sale. At least do something.
He's giving a sequence of events. This is best. If you can't do this,
Yes.
then at least do this. You can't even do this, then do this. So in that way, these shlokas are very, very important. 8, 9, 10, 11. He's given a sequence of events, sequence of things you can do. And the devotees that I listen to, so they gave, this is, we should understand our Guru Parampara a little bit. So they gave commentaries from two main acharyas, okay. So one is Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur. He is one of our, from our Guru Parampara, he is one of our acharya. The other is Baldev Vidya Bhushan. You remember that Baldev Vidya Bhushan is the one whose commentary Prabhupada is using, right? And then Prabhupada. So remember Baldev Vidya Bhushan, he dedicated the Bhagavad Gita to, right? So he dedicated, in his dedication, Prabhupada said to Baldev Vidya Bhushan, who presented so nicely the Govinda Bhasya commentary on Vedanta philosophy, right? So one, we are following Baldev Vidya Bhushan, and Prabhupada and Baldev Vidya Bhushan's commentary are similar because Prabhupada is taken from Baldev Vidya Bhushan, right? And the other is Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur, who is one of our acharyas in the Guru Parampara, okay? They are all saying the same thing, but if you understand both their styles, it makes it very, very, because very, very nectarian reading Bhagavad Gita, because we are not just reading, we're trying to study Bhagavad Gita, right? So we know the import that we have to go back to Godhead. We understand that this is the practice of Krishna consciousness. Prabhupada has broken everything down for us, right? But the reason we are still reading Bhagavad Gita, because we are studying it. And that's the instruction of Prabhupada, to study. He said to study my Bhagavad Gita. So when we are reading these 4 verses, I will, without confusing anybody, I will try to go into just a little more details and see what you can understand, okay? Let's read all 4 of them and recite and read all 4 of them, and then we'll go into the discussion. So, but those are the 2 main acharyas whose commentaries we'll try to discuss. Okay, let's start from 12.8. May eva man adhatsva Mai buddhim niveshaya
Mai buddhim niveshaya
Niveshaya.
Nivsishyasi Mai eva
Nivasisyasi Mayeva
Ata urdhvam na samshaya.
Ata urdhvam
Okay, can somebody read this? Yes, Avni.
Just fix your mind upon me, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, and engage all your intelligence in me. Thus you will live in me always, without a doubt.
Okay, so we'll read all 4, but I just want you to recognize here that Krishna is saying, fix your mind and intelligence upon me. Okay, so he's saying that fixing mind and intelligence upon me as the best thing to do. Okay, that's a step 1. The best, most supreme thing is to fix your mind and intelligence upon me. Okay, then let's see what he says is the next best. Atha chittam samadhatum
Atha chittam samadhatum
na shaknoshi mai sthiram abhyasa yogen tato Mamichhaptum dhananjaya. Okay, can someone read this?
I can read it, Mataji.
Yes, Mataji.
Hari Bol. My dear Arjuna, O winner of wealth, if you cannot fix your mind upon me without deviation, then follow the regulative principles of Bhakti Yoga. In this way, develop a desire to attain me. Hari Bol.
Very bold. Okay. So first he said, fix your mind and intelligence upon me, right? So think of that fixing mind and intelligence like a very spontaneous process where a person is very much attached to Krishna and very easily able to fix their mind and intelligence on Krishna. Okay, that's the best thing to do, where nobody has to force you to chant. You're just very spontaneously able to chant, and you want to chant, you want to engage in Harikatha, you want to read Shastras, right? That's how you fix your intelligence on him. that comes very spontaneously to you, that becomes very that is a very tasteful process for you, right? That was the first step. Second step is, he says, okay, you do not have any taste for me, you do not have any desire for me right now, huh? So then forget about fixing your mind upon me. Just follow the regulative principles of Bhakti Yoga. This is, you can see, this is our stage. Okay? Regulative principles of Bhakti Yoga, meaning that follow basically for disciplining yourself. You do not have a desire to attain me yet. You do not have a taste for me yet, but you are disciplining yourself to chant my names, to listen to Harikatha. You have to little bit push yourself to read scriptures or associate with devotees or do kirtan. So you are not doing it spontaneously out of love for me. You are doing it as a regulative principle, as a disciplinary thing, to trying to get to me, making an effort. So this is called sadhana bhakti. Okay, so in or actually Vedhi bhakti. Okay, has anybody heard this term before? Vedhi bhakti. Vedhi bhakti, is that term familiar? Okay, okay. So sadhana bhakti can be two types. Vedhi bhakti, where one follows regulative principles like we are doing, and the second part of sadhana bhakti is called raganuga bhakti. Are you familiar with raganuga bhakti? Where one is spontaneously attached to Krishna, like our spiritual masters and all, right? They are in raganuga bhakti, which is basically the level of Krishna prema or Krishna bhav, right? Nirbi Prabhu is familiar, right? Vedhi Bhakti and Raganuga Bhakti. Okay. So this is, so the first step was Raganuga Bhakti, where you are very spontaneously fixing your mind and intelligence on Krishna. You have a taste for him, you have a desire for him. The second step is Vedhi Bhakti, where you are following the regulative principles, like Krishna consciousness is basically that disciplinary process that we are following, right? And thus you can develop a desire to attain me. So we do not have a desire yet, right? Today, if a plane from Vaikuntha comes to take you, you'll probably, maybe, I need to do this, I need to do that. Can I enjoy a little more in this world? Can I, I've not gone on a on a trip to Disneyland yet. Can I go there before I go to Vaikuntha? Right? So right now, we're probably not going to climb that plane if it comes from Vaikuntha. So because we have so many attachments and we're trying to break those attachments, developing a desire to Krishna, and he says you can do that by following the regulative principles of Bhakti Yoga. Okay, I'm just very, very briefly, quickly going through these 4 verses. So the second step is clear, right? Okay. Then let's see what he says is the third step. Abhyasepi asamarthosi matkarma paramo bhava madartham api karmani kurvan siddhim avapsyasi. Very bold. So Raina wanted to read. Raina, go ahead.
Not practice the regulations of Bhakti Yoga, then just try to work for me, because by working for me, you will come to the perfect stage. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna, Hare Bol. So he says, okay, you cannot follow, like people don't want to come into bhakti, right? They don't want to take the process of Krishna consciousness, right? Too hard. We don't have time to read scriptures. We don't have time. We don't have 1-2 hours on weekends to read Bhagavad Gita. We don't have time 1.5 hours to chant every day 16 rounds or whatever. There are so many things. We cannot offer food to Krishna. So we cannot follow various limbs of bhakti, right? So that was bhakti. The first 2 shlokas talked about sadhana bhakti, Vedhi bhakti and Raganuga bhakti, which are both sadhana bhakti. So Krishna says, okay, forget bhakti. You don't have any love for me. You don't have any desire for me. What you can do is you just try to work for me. Okay. So this is called Nishkam Karma Yoga. So we have come down from the platform of Bhakti Yoga and you are doing Karma Yoga, right? Nishkam Karma Yoga, that you do all your work for me, right? Is that, remember we talked about Karma Yoga many lifetimes ago. So that is Nishkam Karma Yoga. That you do all your work for me, all your work in service of me. That's Karma Yoga, right? So he said, okay, forget about bhakti. you do not have spontaneous love for me, you don't even want to follow the regulative principles of bhakti yoga, abhyas is not possible. Abhyasa pi asmartho, you're asmarth in doing abhyas, it's okay. Just do the work for me. Okay, that is number 3. Then let's see number 4, what he's saying. So this is for spiritual practitioner, like they want to do something, but he's saying this is not good, then do, if this is not good, then do this. Okay. So in the last, what does he say? 12.11. Athetad api asaktosi.
Athetad api asaktosi
Kartum madhyogam ashrita.
kartum
Kartam
ashritah
Sarvakarma phala tyagam.
sarvakarma phala tyagam
Tata kuru yatatmavan.
tata kuru yatatmavan.
Okay, who wants to read this?
I'll read Mataji.
Yes, Prabhu.
If, however, you are unable to work in this consciousness of me, then try to act giving up all results of your work and try to be self-situated. Hari Bol.
Very bold. So this is pretty self-explanatory that you cannot do all your work for me. Huh? You want to, so at least give up the results of your work to me. So it's like somebody is making a $500,000 a year, whatever, give up some for my work, right? Like they can give some money for charity, for Krishna conscious activities, for building temple, right? For Vaishnav Seva, so give up the fruit of your work, the results of your works. Because whenever we give something, right, something that we think is ours, it is not ours, but let's say we think that it is ours, and when you give up some of that, then you get sukriti, right? Then you get the act of sacrifice earns you some spiritual credit. So you purify that work, right? And eventually you will be able to come to the best path, right? You'll be able to come to the perfect path of bhakti one day by purifying your senses, because your senses, your mind, your intelligence, everything is right now engaged in this work. If some portion of the results of that work you can give away, then you are purifying your mind, your intelligence, your senses, right? But because they are all engaged in this work right now. So then eventually you will be able to, so slowly you can purify yourself. So we should not think that if somebody is not able to come to bhakti today, it doesn't mean that they can never come. Everybody eventually, Krishna says, will come to my path, will come to me, right? Manushya, I'm trying to remember. Ye yatha mam prabhadyante tams tathaiva bhajamyam mam vartamanu vartante manushya partha sarvasha. That in all respects, everybody is actually trying to follow my path. So whenever you do some kind of spiritual work, your work will get spiritual. If you give for some spiritual cause, any charity, then your work will become spiritual also. So in this way, you can purify yourself. And so this is like Sakam Karma Yoga, you can say. So the shloka before was Nishkam Karma Yoga. This is Sakam Karma Yoga, where you're giving some fruits of your work to Krishna. Like I'll give you an example that Amog Leela Prabhu very, very commonly cites. He says this example almost in every lecture that he discusses this concept of Nishkam versus Sakam Karma Yoga. Okay, you might have heard, some of you. So he gives an example of this lady that came to the temple, and he asked that lady, Mataji, we have a big program today. We don't have enough people to help. Mataji, can you please help in the kitchen and peel some potatoes? We need to have a lot of potatoes peeled. Have somebody's heard this story? Yeah. So he says that please, he requested the Mataji, this is his real thing. He asked Mataji, can you please help to peel potatoes in the kitchen? And Mataji got upset. Mataji is like, do you know who I am? I am such and such, whatever position or whatever her title was. And I give 10,000 rupees to your temple every month. You know that? And you are asking me to peel potatoes in the kitchen? You know, I'm giving so much money to the temple and you're still asking me to peel potatoes in the kitchen. So this lady, what is she? Which level is she? Nishkam Karma Yoga or Sakam Karma Yoga?
Which one? Bolo.
Gonna be Sakar Karma Yoga.
Yes, Sakam, right? What does that mean? That means whatever activities she's doing, she's giving some fruit of that activity. She's offering
She's
results
doing
of that
charity.
activity. She's keeping some for herself, but she's giving some in the service of Krishna. So she's getting purified, right? Slowly, because she's giving away her hard-earned money in service of Krishna, right? So that is Sakam Karma. But she's still very possessive or very, she's not completely in service of Krishna. So she cares about what activities she can do or cannot do, right? Nishkam would be, I do not care, you give me any service. I just want to do all acts for Krishna. So if you ask me to manage chappals in the temple, I will do that. If you want me to wash bartan, I can do that. If you want me to serve prasadam to devotees, I can do that. If you want me to massage somebody's feet, I can do that. So I do not care what service you give me. All I want is to work for Krishna. That will be Nishkam Karma Yoga. Sakam would be when you are working and you are possessive about what work you will do, and so she has a job. That's all she wants to do. She wants to do her job. So, and out of that, some uh, fruit she's ready to give to Krishna. So that is also Karma Yoga. It is not purified yet, but it will get purified if she kept on that path, right? So that is what Krishna is saying. Absorbing your mind and intelligence is the best. And if you do that spontaneously, right? The second is, if you're not able to do it spontaneously, then you do it as a regulative principle, which is what we do as a part of discipline. Then you will develop a desire to come to me, right? We are hoping that one day we'll get a desire to go to Krishna. So we follow disciplinary process. And if you can't follow the discipline of Bhakti Yoga, then you at least do all your work for me. If you can't do all your work for me, then you at least give some fruits of your work to me. So those are the 4 levels Krishna has described. This is very, very brief based on various commentaries of 3 of our acharyas. Let's see if anybody has any thoughts or realizations. There is much more on these, but I don't know if that will get more complicated for people. I'll try to write it and explain more, but please share any thoughts.
No, Mataji, can I just add a little bit here? I mean, you already explained everything, but since we are more close to the second stage where we're trying to be disciplined and do the bhakti, the purport is here, like I just want to read from the purport that so it becomes more clear for us. To practice the regulative principles of bhakti yoga, one should to practice the regulative principle of bhakti yoga, one should, under the guidance of an expert spiritual master, follow certain principles. What are those? One should rise early in the morning, take bath, enter the temple, and offer prayers and chant Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare. Then collect flowers to offer to the deity, cook foodstuffs to offer to the deity, take prasadam, and so on. So basically, the very bottom line is chanting, eating prasadam, and following Ekadashi Vrat.
Yes, Prabhuji. Yes, Prabhuji, thank you. Yes, we can, we have to read actually more too. Can you read also this part?
Which one, Mataji?
I think it was in 12.8. Where are we right now? So the engaging your mind and intelligence, right? So just read this part, probably.
The holy name of the Lord and the Lord are non-different. Therefore, when a devotee chants Hare Krishna, Krishna and it is internal potency, are dancing on the tongue of the devotee. When he offers Krishna food, Krishna directly accepts these eatables, and the devotee becomes Krishnized by eating the remnants. One who does not engage in such service cannot understand how this is so, although this is a process recommended in the Bhagavad Gita and in other Vedic literatures.
Very bold.
Very bold.
Okay. We can read a little bit more. And next time I'll just go a little bit more details also. Can somebody, this is from 12.9, can somebody read this part?
Hare Krishna, I can read, Mataji.
Okay, go ahead, Mataji.
In this verse, two different processes of bhakti yoga are indicated. The first applies to one who has actually developed an attachment for Krishna, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, by transcendental love. And the other is for the one who has not developed an attachment for the Supreme Person by transcendental love. For this second class, there are different prescribed rules and regulations one can follow to be ultimately elevated to the stage of attachment to Krishna. Very good.
Very good. So that clarifies 12.8 and 12.9, right? And I'll just share my screen. We'll do this thing very quick and then we'll stop. Okay. Can you see my screen? Yes, okay. So
Yes, Mataji.
this is what I was talking about. So there is something called sadhana bhakti. Okay. Sadhana bhakti, right? This is what we are practicing. Sadhana bhakti, right? Sadhana bhakti has two limbs. Vaidhi bhakti, and the other is called Raga Nuga Bhakti. Maybe Sheetal Mataji remembers from our discussion and from teaching of Lord Chaitanya Mataji, remember? We talked about this somewhat. So Vaidhi Bhakti is the stage where we are, right? This is the stage where one follows the discipline, rules, regulations, and trying to develop attachment. We don't have any attachment. We don't have any desire to achieve Krishna. We're just developing the desire, developing the attachment to Krishna, and trying to detach ourselves from our other attachments that we have, right? Other things that we are trying to purify ourselves. So this is, we are putting in a lot of efforts, and this is the initial stage, right? This is what 12.9 is talking about. Raga Nuga Bhakti is spontaneous. Okay. Here person already has attachment to Krishna. He has love or desire for Krishna. He's at the level of what we call bhav or prema. Okay. Bhav or prema. Okay. This is 12.8 is what is describing. Okay. In this, their mind and intelligence are spontaneously involved. Okay. In this, mind and intelligence, Vaidhi Bhakti, mind and intelligence are not involved. We are trying to fix mind and intelligence by doing services, etc. Right? So by employing even senses also. So mind, intelligence, senses, everything is involved, right? So we are trying to fix by doing services, by chanting, by reading scriptures with the guidance of Guru Sadhu Shastra, right? So this is the position of a neophyte devotee, new devotee, like we are. So this is called Vaidhi Bhakti, which is described in 12.9, and this is called Raga Nuga Bhakti, which is being described in 12.8. Is that clear? Right? And remember that in this yoga ladder, I'll just leave this here. In the yoga ladder, Bhakti Yoga is the topmost. Then comes, I'll skip the Ashtanga Yoga and the Gyan Yoga because, I mean, we can write it, but remember that Ashtanga Yoga, Gyan Yoga, like we discussed, are more of impersonal paths, and we take inspiration from those paths. So we include, so they're included as parts of Bhakti Yoga. They are included in Bhakti Yoga. When we sit in dhyan or when we do Gyan, that is part of Bhakti Yoga, right? We don't just do those, we do them as parts of Bhakti Yoga, right? And then below that comes Karma Yoga. So is this ladder familiar to everybody? Right? Now, to make this 12.8 to 11 easier, I'm just going to delete these two because we have incorporated these two as part of Bhakti Yoga, right? We use these in service of Krishna, right? We use Gyan, we use Ashtang in service of Krishna, right? So we'll eliminate these. Now, Krishna says that if you cannot do 12.8 and 12.9, he says, if you cannot do these things, then at least do Karma Yoga, which is 12.7 and 12.6, right? So this is either Nishkam Karma Yoga or Sakam Karma Yoga, right? Bhakti Yoga was Sadhana Bhakti, which we are the practitioners of Bhakti Yoga. So this is just a very just a little grid or flow chart for you to understand.
So Mataji, is Karma Yoga 12.10 and 11?
Oh, sorry. I'm sorry. Yes, yes, thank you. 12.10 and 11. Yes. Okay, so we'll stop here. Just because these 4 shlokas are very important, but we have covered the basics. I think I'll just do a little bit more next time on this, but you've all understood the gist of it, and then we'll move on to the 12.12, which is a little bit complicated, and after that 12.13 to 20 are very nice. So a little more effort in the next class, and 12.13 to 20 are just completely blissful. Is that okay?
Yeah.
Anybody wants to share anything or any doubts? I don't know, Priyanka Mataji, are you following? Is there any questions, doubts come to mind?
Following so far, Mataji. No questions.
Okay. Mataji, please feel free to ask any questions, or you can ask separately also from me or whoever you're comfortable with. The more your doubts are removed, easier it is to follow on the path. If you have doubts are like weeds. If you have doubts that are not cleared away, then the weeds will grow and they won't let this plant grow. So it's important to deweed, to fertilize. You're fertilizing nicely, but also remove the weeds also.
Definitely, Mataji.
Krishna will start chanting now.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. Hare Bol.
Hare Krishna. Hare Bol.
Patitano Vaishnaveभ्यो नमो
Bhavane
Gaurachandraya Radhikaya Tadalaya Krishnaya Krishna Bhaktaya Tadbhaktaya Namo Namah.
Hare Krishna.
Krishna Srila Prabhupada ki
Jai.
Srimad Bhagavad Gita ki
Jai.
Samved Gaur Bhaktivinoda ki Jai. Hari Bol.
Jai.